How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas, or Monday, or whatever. Just hope you're all good. But today, I'm finally getting around to having a look at that Game Informer interview that dropped about a week ago, and there's some pretty cool stuff in it. A lot of it is very similar to stuff that we've already heard. I would recommend going and giving it a read. I'm not going to cover everything, it'd just take too long to go into every single detail. But I'm going to try and pick a few cool things out and kind of focus in on them, and especially the last couple of pages where it seems to focus a lot more on the narrative and Sephiroth and Aerith and things like that. So yeah, we'll dive into that a bit more, but don't forget to like the video, subscribe for future content, share the video, do all the things, but yeah, let's crack on and get on with this. So the first parts of this interview definitely go back to the beginning of the story, and it talks about like long-term plans for a remake from back when, well, back in like 2005, and Nomura was apparently the one that was spearheading this, and then eventually talks about the journey of getting the remake project off the ground. Like Square Enix had started approving remakes for other products, and Nomura thought, yep, this is it. And it just kind of goes into all that stuff, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that. The first 3 or 4 pages are 100% all about that. And it's very cool to read about like getting the team together and all that sort of stuff. So I do recommend giving it a read. Like I say, link will be in the description. But eventually we get into the Rebirth stuff, and the first thing that we get talked about is like they felt like they had to give us a full world map. It's something that hasn't really been done since Final Fantasy X, and it's something that they felt like they'd have to go back to, especially if they were doing Final Fantasy VII, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to fully experience the world and explore the world. And Nomura even talks about how it feels odd to have an RPG without a world map, and I agree. I do agree. You know, you should be able to run around and explore that stuff. It was one of the big things that hurt that got taken away from Final Fantasy X, and that we've not really seen come back into the franchise. So yeah, good times. And they talk about how with Remake it had to be a more narrative focused, slightly more linear style because of the story that they were trying to tell in Remake, whereas now in Rebirth it needs to open out and be expansive and give you that freedom to kind of go about and view things on your own and kind of learn about the world and connect to the world. So yeah, very happy about it. Hamaguchi says that of the exploration that we do, about 80% of the world map exploration is side content, with about 20% of it being narrative driven. And if you just focus on the main story, the game should take roughly 40 hours, with a little bit of side stuff 60, and with all of it about 100 hours. So there's definitely a lot of stuff going on in this game. One thing that I do wonder about is, with part 1 being kind of the closed off narrative driven bit, part 2 is going to be the open, expansive, run around and do things bit. And it makes me wonder if we're going to see a more narrative-driven, linear story for the third part. It would make sense, you know, you want to pull people into the close of the story at that point, because part 3 is going to be the wrap-up of the story. So they're going to have to be a lot more laser-focused with that. And I think that this could work really well, having like the trilogy with like a sandwich of games. You've got your more linear start, then you've got a big open world that you can go and explore, and everything kind of opens out in the sense of everything feels more grand, and then when we get to part 3, bam, it laser focuses us back in onto the main narrative. I feel like that could work quite well, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that is the way it pans out. Hamaguchi also goes on to say that his favourite non-FF game is Witcher 3 because he's an absolute chad, and seems to suggest that they were using that as a starting point for the side quests, you know, that level of quality. And if that's the case, if they're shooting for Witcher 3 level quality as a starting point on side quests, then yeah, things could get very good. I'm hopeful that they hit those aspirations, because yeah, that'd be pretty amazing. We get some chat about Chadley and how we're going to be helping him doing the usual stuff, all the VR stuff. And we also get some chat about Crow's Nest. Now, Crow's Nest is a new city. It's a sister city to Junon's Undercity. So it's kind of like a little village. And we do see screenshots of a lot of like shipwrecks along the coastline nearby to a lighthouse. And in the background, you can see Fort Condor there. I'm wondering if this sister city is either here on this beachfront or maybe actually at Fort Condor. That's kind of what I'm wondering. I've not seen any other details about it beyond this, so I'm not 100%. But it's an Avalanche-friendly place, very anti-Shinra. Yeah, I get the feeling that this is where we're going to see a lot of those threads picked up with Avalanche and Wutai and things like that. So keep an eye on that one. Also, though, we find out that Kyrie is in that lighthouse. She's giving out side quests in that lighthouse. She's trying to be some sort of mercenary guild. She's trying to start a mercenary guild up. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. We also get a little bit of talk about Queen's Blood, the side game, and how it's going to have a massive amount of cards and a lot of different tactical ways to play it. So I'm very looking forwards to that. We've been playing FF8 and Triple Triad over on stream recently. So, you know, I'm warmed up and ready for some card games. Bring it. We also find out that when we do some side quests, we'll take a character from the party with us on certain side quests. So it'll be us and one other character from what I can read here. And that will increase our affinity with that character. And I'm wondering if this affinity thing, is that going to tie into the date mechanics that we know from the OG, or is it going to be a separate thing? It seems like doing things like using synergy attacks for the first time brings your affinity. Doing these side quests boosts your affinity with a character. It's going to be interesting to see how much they've expanded the relationship mechanics in the party, and whether or not this is a separate thing on top of the date mechanics, or if it's all kind of going to merge into one. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that goes. It should be good. It should be good. But now we're going to get into the juicy bits. So, the last couple of pages is mostly focused on Sephiroth and Aerith. And we come to Sephiroth first, and they talk about how his influence has been expanded, and how we're going to see him a lot more in this than we did in the OG. And that kind of keeps in line with what we had in Remake. So, in the OG, in Midgar, you don't see Sephiroth. So the fact that we even see him is a pretty massive increase on the amount of Sephiroth that we get in the OG. Now, once you get out of Midgar, you do see him, but you tend to see him at specific points. So you'll see him on the Junon Ferry. You'll hear about him more than anything. Most of the time, you're chasing shadows in the OG. You're just behind Sephiroth. You're not quite keeping up with Sephiroth. And the only time that you do keep up with Sephiroth is kind of when he wants you to keep up with him and kind of drops a bomb on you. That's kind of it. So the fact that we're going to see more of Sephiroth going forwards, again, makes sense, keeps in line with Remake, and it keeps in line with this belief that there are more than one Sephiroth. Sephiroths? Sephirai? Sephirothai? There's more than one of that motherfucker. That's kind of the vibe that it's feeding into. We're going to see him more because there's more of him. So, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. They were talking about how they've put a lot of effort into Sephiroth's characterization in the flashback in order to kind of get us to empathise with him more. And that, again, feeds into a lot of things that we've already heard about how they're going about things with Sephiroth. And they want us to understand his downfall completely so that we get more impactful moments later on in the game, and especially during the game's conclusion at the Forgotten Capital. And that's interesting because Sephiroth just kind of drops in, does his thing and fucks off in the OG. He kind of comes in, does his thing and leaves. He doesn't stick about. He waffles for a little bit with his arms out like, haha, I win, bitch. But beyond that, he doesn't do too much. We don't get any massive revelations about him. Whereas here, it's seeming like we might actually learn some Sephiroth stuff at the Forgotten Capital. And it's all kind of leaning into the Forgotten Capital changing a fair bit. And he doesn't just say about Sephiroth, he says that we'll understand a lot more about Cloud in this segment as well. So yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen at the Forgotten Capital. I mean, obviously we are, for obvious reasons, and we'll get to that in a second, but it seems like there's going to be a lot more stuff going on involving Sephiroth and maybe some kind of revelation about him. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this. But the interviewer then asks about, you know, that. And apparently the mood in the room kind of drops. Everything goes somber, everyone kind of changes tone a little bit, and Nomura responds. Beginning with the original Final Fantasy VII when we had started working on it, it was already decided from the get-go that life would be the central theme surrounding the game. I knew that we had to depict life and death within this title. Prior to Final Fantasy VII, there have been other titles where characters have experienced tragedy, but many of them have come back or been revived in some way. But I believe that loss is something that happens unexpectedly. It's not something so dramatic or drawn out, but is something in which a person that you have just conversed with is suddenly gone, and never to come back. I believe that the person who dies should not return in this title, and that is what we did with the original. So there's a lot to kind of unpack there. It makes sense. If you think about it just in the context of the OG, it makes complete sense. Like, and we all know the stories of, like, they were going to kill everybody except 3 people, and then they decided just to kill one person, and it was like, well, who do we kill? And then it was decided it was going to be Aerith, etc. We know all about that. And that he just said, what Nomura just said there, makes sense and ties in with that. But it's that wording at the end. I believe that the person who dies should not return in this title, and that is what we did with the original. He's not saying, I believe that Aerith should not return in this title, like we did in the original. What he's saying is, in the original, someone died and they didn't come back, and we're going to do that again. And I feel like... So, I don't know, I'm kind of reaching the point of just pure confusion now. I've seen a lot of people are feeling this. And they've double bluffed us that many times now, I don't know what my name is anymore. Like, they've done it to the point where it's like, oh, Aerith's gonna live. They convinced me that Aerith was gonna live. And then recently they kind of unconvinced me that Aerith was gonna live a little bit, because they keep saying these things that make it vague about who's gonna die. And I feel like they'd only do that if they were gonna slap us in the face and kill the same person anyway. Again though, it comes down to, are they bluffing us, or are they double bluffing us, or are they triple bluffing us, or have we just been bluffed into oblivion? A bluffion. Is that what this is? Have we been bluffed into a bluffion? I don't know anymore. Like, I have been hovering around on this one. I think Aerith's going to survive 1 minute. I think she's not the next minute. And just as a little bonus tidbit, like Hamaguchi was doing an interview recently, like an end-of-year message thing in Japan, where they got a load of developers who all gave a message looking forwards to 24. And Hamaguchi gives one of these, and he says, "The game I'm directing, FF7 Rebirth, will finally be released on February 29th. For fans who are greatly anticipating being able to explore the world map, we have made it possible, along with exploration and freedom of choice. I promise that it has greatly improved from the previous FF7 remake as well." Everything's fine there. Everything's fine. He's not said anything bad yet. But then he has to finish it, doesn't he? The story will take place from when the party escapes Midgar up until the Forgotten Capital. I hope that we are able to show to many fans what direction Aerith's fate will be. Stop it. Stop it. I'm sick of you all. You all need to stop it. Why are they toying with my heart like this? Why? Why do they keep having to do this? Because, like, my brain's instantly going to think, that they're being sus about it. But what if they're not being sus about it and they're just being straight? What if they're just shooting straight and they're like, oh, wonder what's going to happen to Aerith, and then she still dies? And it's just exactly the same as it was in the OG, and everyone just kind of sits here and goes, oh, well, we look like dicks now, don't we? But alternatives, like, who do you kill? Like, really? Who is going to be that much of an impact on Cloud that it's going to fuck him up? And the only other person that it could be would be Tifa. And that's purely because we know Tifa is the one who goes into the live stream with Cloud and with Aerith's help and fixes Cloud's brain. So without Tifa being alive to do that, and without Aerith being in the live stream to protect Tifa, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's all very confusing. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I think the last 5 minutes of this video have just been me having some form of existential dread about Aerith's fate. So we're going to wrap it up, but let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. Are you burned out on all of the news and the trailers and the interviews and everything like that? I'm starting to feel a little bit burned out, but only because they keep sending me one way and then the other and then the other and then the other, and I just don't think I can handle it. I think I'm going to catch fire if I keep on flip-flopping as much as I have been. A bluffian. Amazing. Anyway, drop your thoughts in the comments below, tell me what you're thinking, like the video, subscribe for future content, but more importantly than anything, have a great day.